Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here today with Eitan, and we are talking about breaking through barriers. This is one of the weeks of the year that we get an extra boost, as we spoke about last week, not only to interrupt old patterns and to really clear out old attachments, old stories, but even more so, one of the I would say most universal patterns that we as human beings subscribe to is that when things are dark, when things are chaotic, we want to do everything we can. We want to be as mindful, as connected. We behave. And then when things are good, we tend to become complacent. And the ups and downs, the back and forth, the urgency versus the complacency can be a tremendous source of long-term challenges in our lives. And the reasons why we don't heal those patterns is because we're basically telling the universe that we are at our best, our most mindful, our most connected when things are going wrong. And so the universe follows our lead and gives us exactly what we're asking for. This is the week we can break those barriers, we can interrupt those patterns, and we're here to talk all about how to do that. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where we provide our listeners with the most powerful and practical tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that through the teachings and tools of Kabbalah. And every week we end up offering up tools and wisdom that can help you any week of the year, any year of your life. And this week is no different. We're in the second week of what we spoke about in last week's episode, the period called the Shovavim, where we have the opportunity to dig deep and elevate sparks of light that we may have given toward negativity that weren't previously accessible. We may feel a bit of a regression in that sense, but here we're learning this week that the regression really serves a very high purpose, and there are deep lessons and opportunities for growth in this week that we want to make sure that we don't miss. So Eitan, how do we begin to take advantage of the gift of this week?
So it's so interesting how the story of this weekly portion corresponds to what each one of us need to work on, which is transformation, not only when I'm facing a disaster or the urgency to change. So the story is about Pharaoh. You know, the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. And the story tells us that here came Moses and threatened Pharaoh. Plagues, disasters, chaos will come upon Egypt if you are not going to let them go. One plague, Pharaoh didn't change his mind. Second plague, third man, suddenly he realized it's horrible. Okay, Moses, please, stop the plague. Stop the chaos. I'm going to let go of the Israelites. So Moses stopped the plague, and Pharaoh changed his mind. Things become calm. They said, no, I'm not going to let them go. I've changed my mind. Each one of us have our own Pharaoh within. The one that reacts to external situations. When things are bad enough, we're saying, yes, I'm going to change. It can be externally. Yes, I'm going to work out every week. I feel horrible. Yes, the doctor tells me if I'm not going to change my discipline, I'm going to get a heart attack, God forbid. I'm going to change it with diet, with exercise. This being threatened to be divorced. I'm going to change. Absolutely. And then what happens when things seem to be less urgent? There's not too much pressure from the outside. We become complacent. We become numb, and we're going back to our old self. Kabbalistically, the test of transformations and change is when things are okay in the outside. When the universe pushing me to change because of chaos and negativity, it's not real change. Real change is proactive. Proactive means externally things seem to be okay for a minute, but anyway, I no longer want to connect with the old self because sooner or later it will attract the chaos. And even though I don't experience it now, I no longer receive energy from the complacent me, from the old me. So we need the gift of urgency sometimes. We need a wake-up call from the universe. We need a little chaos to wake us up. We're humans. We're complacent. But am I actually using it as a first step and committing for follow-through? So that's the idea. Now, how do we go about proactive change? I want us to open up this discussion. Elisheva, what is the first step of taking it to the next level and not just being pushed to the corner, so I have to behave differently, I have to act differently. So how do you differentiate between changing externally versus changing internally? What are the steps? What are the awareness?
Well, I think it starts with the acknowledgement that when there is a challenge externally, it's a wake-up call. Now, we learn from the teachings of the Kabbalists that everything that happens in our lives, good and seemingly not good, is there to get us closer to the Creator, to the light of the Creator, which doesn't mean I've got to get a plane and fly as high as I can. It means that I need in my own behavior, in my own existence, to be more like the light of the Creator, but also to develop a closer relationship with the Creator. So what usually happens when there's an external challenge, we pray, we talk to God, we negotiate, right? I often joke about how, it's not funny, but if you've ever been worried about a child who's ill, you make all kinds of promises, commitments, declarations, and then the moment that the child recovers, right, it's like we go back to normal. Or we forget about the commitments that we've made. If we truly understand that the reason that any challenge comes to us is to remind us, not to make us go a mile closer and then coast 1 mile closer until the next chaos comes, but literally to refocus us on the purpose for which we were created. To be co-creators, to be like the light of the Creator in the physical reality. The light of the Creator is in the metaphysical realm. We are supposed to be the light of the Creator in the physical reality. And I see, maybe as a impartial observer in so many people's experiences, I see so clearly how, in my life and the life of others, all of those challenges, from the smallest to the biggest, are really there just to refocus our effort. Stop focusing out there, focus inward. The work is internal. And I think once you realize that, then you can start to identify, well, wait a second. You can sit down with your handy dandy journal and write down all of the things, all of the behaviors, all of the thoughts, all of the feelings that you have that are not aligned with the light, that are not light-like. I'm jealous, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm stubborn, I'm judgmental, I'm critical. All of those things that are the opposite of the nature of the light of the Creator is where the work is. So people often say, well, how do I know I'm going to pick the right thing? There is no right thing. Anything you pick to transform, to heal, to improve is going to be on the path that the universe is intending you to work on. If it's funny to even think of right or wrong. Any spiritual work is spiritual work. But the whole idea that something external can come to tell us it's time to refocus on the internal, and it's not usually an internal mechanism that awakens us, is because all of the people in our life and all of the situations in our life are really the communication system from the universe. right? And so sometimes we get upset about the communication system and we miss the message that's intended in the communication. So we blame the person who's hurting us, or we blame the company that wronged us, or we blame the society that's unfair, rather than looking at where the situation is trying to get us to look at. And it's so powerful when you have that realization, and then you can also understand or internalize the idea that if you veer from that, even just a little, 1 degree, 2 degrees from where the real work is, you're going to get progressively far away from the destination, right? This is like geometry. 1 degree or 2 degree angle is going to make the third leg of the triangle wider and wider. The universe is constantly, and it could be anything. You know, somebody steals your parking spot. You're about to park and somebody steals your parking spot. What's the big problem? The problem is the universe is telling you you're looking outside of yourself. Go back to looking inward. It's not them, it's you. And not from a blame or that you should feel bad or guilty or beat yourself up, but to realize that the control is in your hands. The responsibility is in your hands. The accountability is in your hands. And you get to decide how the next moment looks, and the next moment looks, and the moment after that.
So beautiful. So I want to bring it down to earth, to practical example. First with a couple that I know that started a company with conscious and spiritual values. And the company grew and grew and grew. And in some point, the ego took over. The arrogance took over. And chaos was manifested. Chaos arrived. And with the chaos, humility came about. Realizing we're too arrogant. Realizing we thought we know it all. Realizing because of our arrogance, we were blinded to trust the wrong people and so on. And then the Creator gave them another opportunity to build another conscious and spiritual values companies. And it's growing and growing and growing. And now recently they realize, wow, the tendency to be arrogant, the tendency to start to see what's wrong with other people, which basically saying, I know better, came back again. But thank God that the spiritual muscles to realize, pause, wait a second, don't go there. Learn from your lesson. The fact that things are okay, the fact that you don't have chaos, doesn't mean you don't have to push in this essential consciousness, because eventually consciousness creates reality. Arrogance will create chaos. I don't have to wait for the chaos. Which brings us even to as a Kabbalah student. Let's look at this. I'm sure that many of you, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, didn't even think about spiritual concept and engaging weekly, daily learning lessons. Why? Because you didn't have urgency in your life, and then something happened in your life that triggered you to say, I have to wake up. I have to look for something deeper. I'm looking for peace inside. The chaos doesn't work for me. A lot of people that would come to the center, either online or physically, in person, in the different centers all over the world, they started Kabbalah 1 because unhappiness in their life, which is like Pharaoh, some urgency. I'm going through some pain that's pushing me. I need some spirituality. And here comes the test. Then things after a while becoming better. Are you pushing for spiritual transformation and growth in the same urgency and intensity when you add an issue in your life? And that's the difference between internal spiritual desire versus external. What is external? Let's differentiate being driven by external desires versus internal. By the way, we need to have external desires, but not just. What is external desire? Desire to relieve myself from pain. It's very simple. It's a survival desire. It's temporary relief desire. Because as human, we don't like pain, which is okay. We need to have this desire as well. That's part of the lower part of our soul called the nefesh that attach to more the survival and the relief desire. Relief from pain, relief from hurt, relief from judgment, relief from financial situations, relief from the guilt that I'm feeling, whatever it is. So that's one. And sometimes, when we didn't wake up proactively to change, we will have external situation that will push us, I need relief, I need to change something. The question is, that's the only desire that drives you? Or you're in touch with the desire of your soul? What is the desire of the soul? I'm here to constantly transform, elevate, grow, because that's my life purpose. And to really get to the place you have sense of urgency about transformation without chaos in your life, that's what being with the concept of being with the light is. Sense of vigor, urgency to transform, to grow, to show up in a greater way in this world, to keep improving your ways, to take your relationship with your spouse, with your boyfriend, girlfriend to the next level, not because of chaos, to take the company to the next level, not because of chaos, to take the way that you're actually contributing to the world to the next level, not because of chaos. That's what spiritual and internal desire is. External desire, survival and relief. Internal desire, I want the endless. I want to access the true potential, the limitless. And we need to develop that urgency. And that's the change. And that's the change. What desire drive? It's okay that initially I'm driven by external desire. That's life. The question, am I taking it to the next level?
How does what you're talking about relate to health challenges? I'm just listening, trying to listen through the ears of our listeners and thinking that when something happens externally, like you gave the example of this couple with the business and them becoming critical and arrogant, I see clearly how, it's easy to understand that. Or, if your partner threatens to leave, God forbid, because of this and this and that, and you can say, okay, I'm going to focus on my internal work. But when a health challenge comes up, it's not really an external thing. It's an internal thing also. How can a person use a health challenge as a means to foster and continue their spiritual work, especially when some health challenges actually seem to diminish a person's capacity to do and to be engaged and to be present?
So first, I'm sure the audience and you, Elisheva, meeting so many people, have you encountered people that tell you, wow, I had a major challenge with cancer, with major illness, but it was such a big blessing in my life because I'm not the same person anymore. So let's first understand that every sickness that we're going through, any health challenge, or any challenge that we're going through, the purpose is to awaken us not to be the same people, to elevate to the better version of ourselves. But like everything else in life, I think first step, of course, you need to be pushed externally, and it's okay that you're dealing externally. I want to know exactly what's happening. I want a second opinion. What is the best? While you have in your mind, I know it's for the best, for elevations, and I'm trying not to fall into negativity and chaos and more certainty. I would say when you have a positive out, you know what? It's all for the best. Meanwhile, let me see how do I treat it in the best way. And the best doctor and the person's approach, depend who you are, depend what you believe in, maybe alternative, maybe partly external, Western medicine, Eastern medicine, whatever it is. That's part of the process. And if I'm not learning it, it will keep coming again. I know it for myself. Part of the process, and doesn't mean the first second you heard about the physical challenge you feel it, has to be internal work of reflection. I'm meant to be a different person. After this disease will go away, I'm not just transforming for the sake of relieving myself from the disease. The disease was just a wake up not to be the same person. So I actually need to envision myself being different, even if disease is not there, with my value, with being present with the right people in my life, with taking care of myself. Sometimes, very often, it has to do with learning to take care of my soul, of my emotions, of my real internal needs. Like a kid that I'm ignoring. Very often, one of the tikkun about it, you ignore part of yourself. I'm not talking about selfishness. Like you don't take care of one of your children. You're not present. You're not there. You're not feeling them. Sometimes we ignore part of ourselves. We're not present. And it's not just because I want to get rid of that disease. The disease are just wake up to upgrade to a new behavior, new feelings, new love, new consciousness, new behavior.
So important.
Both realities.
Yeah.
External and internal.
I feel like this is a concept we could talk about for hours, that screen or curtain that prevents us from seeing clearly. I often hear from people, I wish I knew the lesson. I don't understand why it's in my movie. I remember once a group of teachers were talking with Karen Berg, and one of the teachers asked Karen, how can we access those files? Because on some level, our soul knows why a particular challenge is in our movie, what we can change, what the ultimate level of ourselves looks like, where there's just a gap between our conscious knowledge and our soul knowledge. So she asked Karen, how can we access that file so that we can know why we have this particular challenge or why we are the way we are? So Karen used this specific example. Karen said, let's say you have a person who she has a blockage around intimacy, fear of being intimate. Not that she doesn't have a partner who loves her deeply and profoundly, but she just can't bring herself to be completely open and connect on an intimate level. Is it going to help her? Or maybe Karen said it differently. Karen said, let's say in a previous lifetime, she was abused. And therefore, there's that residue of memory on a soul level, and she is afraid to open herself up to the potential of that happening again. Is that going to give her the strength to overcome the blockage? Is that going to inspire her or give her the motivation to be vulnerable and to let down her guard and to heal her? No. The knowledge doesn't help us. If it would, we would have that knowledge. And I'm sharing that because I know that one of the things that trips people up is not knowing why. That they say, oh, yes, I have to get closer to the light. I'm working on my consciousness. I'm using the tools to be more connected, to be more inspired, to be more elevated. But I don't understand why this is happening. This specific versus another form of chaos. What's the lesson I'm supposed to get? And that knowing the lesson doesn't make the change easier. Obviously, we're meant to seek the knowledge. We're meant to try and understand our previous lifetimes because we want to put an end to those cycles. But to remember that knowing is not actually a tool. It's not a key that helps us unlock whatever blockage is there. The real work, like you said, Eitan, is focusing on what can be different, what can I change, what's not in alignment that I can bring into alignment. And then we see that the need for the chaos diminishes because we're becoming who we're truly meant to be. And the chaos is not, I feel like we can't end the episode without making the point, and I would love to hear maybe the way you would say it, is chaos is not a punishment. And I hope that everyone who's listening doesn't feel like when something bad happens or there's a challenge, that somebody up there doesn't love them or they're doing the wrong thing or they're not a good person.
Actually, there's a difference between the word challenge and chaos. Challenge, when we look at the word, for me at least, the word challenge means opportunity to grow and to upgrade. Chaos means there's no order to it. So I think everything has an order to it. And there's one intelligence that drives every second of our life, if it's pain or if it's pleasure. Awakening us to grow, awakening us to go to our next level.
Right. It's only chaotic if we forget it has a purpose.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
1 second. I wanted to add something.
Yeah.
For those of our listener that live in New York, I am starting next week, January 27th, at Monday, 7 p.m. in person, the Power of Kabbalah course, Kabbalah 1, deeper, upgraded. If you have a chance, we'll send you the information and join us. The first class is free. You can test it out. All the best and talk soon.
Definitely. We'll put those links in the show notes and on weeklyenergyboost.com. You can also, if you're not in New York, it's a great opportunity to send your friends and family who are in New York to join us there and begin their journey. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow us on those platforms to receive additional content to support you in living what we speak about on every episode. We're also at weeklyenergyboost.com. There you can find our archives, things that we think are important for our listeners to know about, as well as the donate button, which allows us to continue to put out the content and the episodes that we're providing. So visit us there, send us a message, let us know how we can support you better. And as always, like, rate, review, and share. We'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.